This is Access Houston on 97.9 The Box.
Good Sunday morning. You're listening to Access Houston. I'm your host, KG Smooth. Welcome in the studio. First timer. He's a motivational speaker. He has quite a story to tell. Former basketball player for the University of San Diego. I don't even know where to begin, but his nonprofit, No Script, is doing great things. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Brandon Johnson. Hey, the finger sound. Okay, yeah.
What's up, baby, man? How you guys doing out there, man?
How's it going, G?
Man, good,
So
good,
listen,
man. Thankful.
One of my comies, that's like friend coworker combined.
I like that. I'm definitely taking that right now. Comies, huh?
Well, yeah, one of my comies, hit me up about you, and I was like, well, what is it that he has going? And he explained. I was like, oh yeah, let's link it up.
G Maniac, man. Shouts out to G, man.
Yes, sir. And so here we are. So welcome to the program. Tell us about yourself. You have an amazing story, and it only you can tell it how you can tell it. So give us. Tell us the background of Mr. Brandon Johnson.
Oh man, where did I start? It's been a journey. First off, I want to say all glory to God, man, just for making this happen, man. I'm thankful to be here. Yeah, the journey, man. So I'm from Houston, Texas. Over there, I grew up in Missouri City. Shouts out to Zero, man. I was over there in Ridgemont. So I grew up there, man. Went to Willow Ridge High School. I picked up the passion to play basketball around that time, and man, I kind of went through with it, man. I ended up getting the opportunity to play at the next level. If you guys not familiar with Willow Ridge High School, TJ Ford, Daniel Ewan, Ivan McFarland, all those guys, man, who kind of paved the way for a lot of Houston sports or basketball. Gerald Green, shouts out to him. I played. That was one of my teammates, man. So
wow.
That was a journey within itself, man. I was actually homeless in high school. Around the 9th grade, man, I was sleeping in cars and staring at friends' houses and things like that. So during that time, man, I had a rough upbringing in a sense, man. My mom's she was sent to prison around my 3rd grade, so I ended up having to go live with my father. I met my father around that time, and me and him had our differences. Where around the 9th grade, I had to hit the streets, and I stayed out of school for like 9 months. And one of my good friends, man, saw me and told his grandmother, like, hey, Brandon don't have a place to stay. He's missing school. I stopped playing basketball, and from there, man, his grandma actually gave me a option. She's like, hey, stop doing what you're doing and just come back to school, but I have to completely. And when I say stop doing what you're doing, meaning in the streets, all the things that involve in the streets. So, man, I let God move on my spirit right then, man, and I end up, getting back in basketball. End up getting the opportunity to play at the University of San Diego in California. If those don't know, with San Diego, it's like a piece of heaven, man, if you ever been. But from there, man, I started playing basketball, ended up making freshman All-American team. By my junior year, man, it was time to go to the NBA. From there, we had a crazy season at the University of San Diego. Actually, the first time a school in California, San Diego, won the first round game in March Madness, which I think you guys are familiar with March Madness for as college basketball. And from there, man, I ended up getting the opportunity to play at the next level. I went to the Phoenix Suns, and then I went to the Wizards for a little bit. And this when the curve come in, I end up going to the Wizards. This is time to get paid. Like I said, I sacrificed so much. I went through such a crazy experience in college. College for me was a real culture shock. I came from obviously in our community, it's mostly all black. Right. And I go to a white school, rich, and I'm living in poverty. I go to college with 2 bags of clothes. And from there, man, I end up, creating a whole new life for me, learning. I educated myself to a higher level and everything like that.
And so, you were there on a basketball scholarship?
Yeah, I was there on a basketball scholarship, and I actually tore my Achilles after my junior year. The year I was supposed to go to the NBA, I ended up coming back, tore my Achilles, so I repaired myself. My 5th year, got a medical, ended up going to the Phoenix Suns. Steve Kerr and those guys was over there during the time. Coach Gentry and Dan Marley, they liked what they saw. They sent me over to the Wizards. I got an opportunity to play with those guys for preseason. And when everything started kind of moving, like I say, if you take the story of everything I've been through, from the homeless, from the sacrifices that I had to make to get to that point, you would think like, hey, it's time, and that's how I was looking at it. But what makes this unique, it was a curveball thrown where during that time I was with the Wizards, I ended up coming back to Houston to see my moms, and we was trying to build a relationship. I come in about that night. I'm tired from the flight and everything. About 6 a.m. that morning, man, I wake up and I hear a loud noise at the door. So I go to the door and I look out the peephole, and I see FBI outside my peephole. So all I'm looking outside and I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm thinking they got the wrong house. And I'm looking out the peephole, like I said, 6 a.m. in the morning. I'm just waking up. You're really not locked in yet. So I look out the peephole, and I see a couple of FBI badges. I open the door, and right then and there, in seconds, my life changed. They pointed the guns at me, said, "Get down on the ground." I see other FBI agents running around, and it's about 12 of them. They're running around the house. They got the guns pointed at me. They tell me to lay down the whole night. They tell me to lay down. It was like a movie that morning, man. And they tell me to lay down on the ground, and my mom's come out the room. And this is what was so impactful. When my mom's ran out the room, she's just in tears. She has no idea what's going on. The FBI is standing over me, screaming. The units, they handcuffed me. And from there, like I say, my life changed in seconds, man. My mom's came out crying in the middle of the floor, which tore me apart to see my mom's right there like that. And I still don't know what was going on. She had no idea. I had no idea. So once they take me out, they had to be there, because when I walked out, they was in unmarked cars. So that whole process in my head, I'm saying, okay, this is insane. Because I'm just leaving the NBA. I'm coming from the Wizards. Like I said, everything I sacrificed, I'm a foot in the door. You know, a lot of people was comparing my game to Chris Paul. You know, I was meeting a lot of, GMs saying, hey, you got a good chance. And like I said, at that moment, everything I risked was on that line right then. So by 8 p.m. that night, they run me through the interrogation room, and they sit there, good cop, bad cop. They sitting across the table from me, and they say, once we play this tape, you're going to know what's going on. So, I'm not in panic mode right now. I'm a real calm person until, it's time. I've never been one to, really that's not me. So, during that time, man, I'm real calm. At this moment, I'm still thinking they got the wrong person. Mm-hmm. So they play the tape. And once I hear my voice, I immediately say, hey, stop it, because I don't want to hear it. And from there, I knew my life was about to take a whole nother route. So in college, I was involved in a point shaving case. For those who don't know who point shaving is controlling the outcome of the game. Mm-hmm. And that means it's like gambling, sports betting, and things like that. So I was engaged with the mafia. But this is things that I don't know. I'm telling you things once I found out through the script. So about 8 p.m. that night, they put me in the orange jumpsuit. And the orange jumpsuit was probably the most frightening thing in my life that I've ever witnessed, because I was so, it's like it paralyzed me. So at this moment, just imagine you sitting right here right now, and the FBI come in here and just snatch you out. Just remove you from everything you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was so impactful because I had went so far away. Yeah, I had went so far away from anything negative for that to happen in that moment. At 8 p.m. that night, I'm sitting in solitary in downtown federal prison, Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting down there at 8 p.m. that night. I'm trying to figure out what happened. It didn't even click because it happened so fast. Mm-hmm. FBI agents, the whole interrogation, putting me in the outfits, putting me in the orange jumpsuit, and then all of a sudden they just like stay in here. So I'm paralyzed. I'm in shock. I'm in a state of shock at this moment. I'm sitting on top of the bunk, and I'm just tucking the cover over the orange jumpsuit, so I don't really look at reality at this moment. I was trying to make it an illusion, or somebody gonna wake me up eventually, which it was never a dream at that point. Now the next morning, I'm still don't know the magnitude of the case yet. So the next morning, the officer walked by, slide the paper under the door. Biggest day. I'm on USA Today about the case. So so it took a turn to a whole nother, like I said, a whole nother magnitude. The impact that made. I watched my life. I stayed in solitary 7 days. I watched my life get torn apart. I lost my agent, my contract, and everything. By the time I get home, I got news people, ABC, everybody's there. I got friends calling everybody because it ran on ESPN for like 4 months. This is 2011. 2011, all this ran on ESPN. I remember one of the officers like, man, he don't know what I'm going through. He would come by the door. He's like, man, your case so serious. They took Barry Bonds information off the TV and ran your clips, so because point shaving is such a big deal in sports, or sports betting period. Mm-hmm. And so I go through that, and then when I get out, I had to fight this case for 2 years. I'm fighting for my life. I actually went I'll talk about that later, but through those 2 years, I was sentenced March 1st, 2013 to prison. They told me I was a self-surrender. I had to turn myself in May 31st. I ended up getting 6 months and a year. And so I had to turn myself in. So I asked, when I go speak, I ask people, how do you get ready for prison? I'm 23 years old, 22 years old, trying to get my mind ready for this situation on top of everything else I went through. You know, so when I go there, man, I sit in prison. I prepared myself, and that's something I speak on for, is the faith and everything. But in May 31st, I was sentenced. I did my time. I got out, and God blessed me with another opportunity for so many other lanes that He's opened up in my life, which I will get to. But that impact it had, like I say, for me to go through that, the mafia was in my case. I found out people had a standoff. It was somebody in my case had a standoff with the SWAT team, you know. So through this time, I'm not even knowing how serious this is or the level of, you know, seriously,
Right.
yeah, you know. So
Yeah.
I went through that stage of so many different things, but I can tell you now, the information that I have that I go speak to these kids about, I have been playing the last 6 years professional basketball. You know, now I'm able to go and educate these kids on my experience. The couple weeks back, I spoke at the University of Louisville, which I go in there and I spoke with the FBI. And I watched the FBI speak, and I could see the impact they had and the impact I had. When the FBI up there, they're reading statistics, everything that they've heard. And the kids are looking at it from a different view, like, hey, this is just another presentation.
Right.
You know?
And
then,
not really paying attention.
Yeah,
They're just
yeah,
there. Like,
yeah. And then when
I
I step in and I'm like, hey, I went through this. I experienced this. And I'm educating through my experience.
So now they sitting up straight. And
Yeah, yeah.
in.
Now everybody's wondering, like, man, because I look like them. You know, I don't look like I'm that far removed from college. I still play pro ball. I'm still doing what you're doing. I went through your process, and I'm in the main people that's, you know, who's sitting in them seats is our color.
Man, hold up.
Yeah.
You're listening to Access Houston, talking to motivational speaker and former NBA player Brandon Johnson. What a bold journey.
Yeah.
The aptly named bold journey that he has gone through. So now, with you going through all that, now you're on the other side.
Yeah. Change the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so tell us about, you know, you going around talking to these kids. What has been the reception when you talk to them?
It's been crazy, man. The feedback, man. I actually through that time, man, like I say, God, and I want to make sure I highlight the journey of what I've been through, but with God, He's affected it and been so instrumental in it.
Yes.
None of this, it's been so many blessings and things that had happened that this has nothing to do with me. I don't want to tell the story in a sense of like, I made it happen.
Absolutely.
You know, and I tell people blessings when a human can't do it. And that's when God is a blessing, you know? So through this time, man, I like I say, it's so many kids that I come across that's been homeless, that's been going through certain situations. And it's bigger than the point shaving issue. Right now, at first, when the NCAA called me, I spoke at the NCAA. It's called the Athletic Symposium. It's in Indianapolis. And I spoke there. It's like the top 25 kids in the country that Zion and all these guys are invited to. And it's because they're going through certain situations. So I was actually in China when this journey started. And I was in China. I remember sitting in prison manifesting so many things and telling God, listen, I'm going to talk to him when I get a chance. I had never spoke on my case. A side note, when I got out, I went to the halfway house. The ESPN, the magazine, actually picked me up and we rode around Houston, and I kind of gave them bits and pieces. But they asked me what was the most motivation through that situation. I remember sitting in that courtroom and the judge said, you won't play ball again. And he put so many labels on me. And I'm sitting there at 23 saying, hey, this is about basketball. You know, like, it's a lot of people out here. I read stories where it's people in the mafia, so many cases that these people are really taking risk. And I'm sitting there like, hey, I made a mistake, but I'm not a menace to society. You know, the more I find out, the integrity of the game was up for grabs. They had to make an example of me to a certain extent.
Oh, absolutely.
You get what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
The older I got, the more mature I got mentally. And that process in prison was people asked me about that. It was amazing for me because I had left at 15. By the time I'm 20, 23, 24, I had went so far, graduated, got to college, graduated, NBA, all this, and I've been fighting my whole life. Yeah. And to go through all that from the homeless shelter to prison, I got rest. And a lot of people need that rest. And a lot of people are going so much where they don't balance that. And that was the first time. And when I got out, man, I was ready for the world. And I had manifested so many things inside that prison cell where 6:30 a.m. I'm getting up training. because that I didn't let my circumstances define my future. Even I remember talking to a lawyer 2 months after they picked me up, and I went. She was actually my AAU coach wife, and I went to her, and I was like a child when I first met her, and I went to her and I said, hey, she said, just tell me the truth. And I told her about my case, and she right there 2 months later, she said, hey, you're gonna go to prison. So from there, I got to make a decision. How bad do I really want to play this game? And I tell people that because you have to have so much belief in yourself and God. Because if I let those situations or those labels, I'm reading certain things in the paper and they tear me apart. Yeah. My case was a high profile case. So through this process, I gotta tell myself and I gotta believe so much in God and get connected where, man, I really want to play this game after. Where I let this define. Will this be my defining moment? So I tell people about, hey, the power of decision making is your greatest gift, because the decision I made to engage into that point shaving case with the mafia and all that, I also had to make a decision. Hey, are you gonna quit? So when I got out of prison and before I went, I started preparing. I prepared for my opportunity. I spoke on a radio station the other day and I told them about preparing for your opportunities. And if I don't prepare through this whole process, I don't think I get to the next level. I don't think when I get out, I go play professional basketball again, because if I didn't prepare, when I got to the prison, I probably sat there for one day and manifested my dreams and told everything in my mind, hey, this is what I want to do. And it starts here. And I know in that moment, you can't see the vision. And a lot of people was down on me and saying, I remember my family, I didn't look like the success I was. I've been gone this long. I tell people, I say, what you gonna do when they stop cheering? Right. Who are you when they stop cheering?
And I bet that's when you found out who your real friends were. Yeah. Who was really down for you.
Yeah. It was a lot of people evacuated. They didn't even give me the option.
I would be remiss without asking, how did you end up in that situation? Was it, like the mob, point shaving? Was it something you just being young and naive and you just fell into it? It was not intentional. Yeah. It was just, wrong place, wrong time, or something sounded good and you not knowing the repercussions. Like, how did you fall into that?
I think so. During this time, man, I had a good friend, and he was like my brother. And understand this, I come from a background of I could make that decision. I know what this world is, at the same time, like growing up in the streets of Houston, like I think I was vulnerable to the connection between me and this, he was my coach at the time. My freshman and sophomore year, he was my coach. After that staff was released. So it was like 3 years after this situation happened. But the relationship we built, he was going through certain things through his time. And I think he was in contact with them. And he got in some situation with them and then used our relationship and took advantage of that situation. But at the same time, I get it. Once I read the transcript, I found out he was going through certain things with them. I didn't know, once it all came, so I was young to a certain point. So
you were one of the pawns in the overall scheme.
And that's why I go tell a lot of kids, you never know, because a lot of kids thinking, okay, how does point shaving happen? And people ahead, they're saying, okay, he went out there and did the game. That's not the only form of point shaving. You can just let somebody go score 2 points, and that's point. You don't have to have the ball. You don't have to do that. It's simple as this. When I speak, I tell them, I say, if you're at the club, and a lot of obviously men want to talk to girls. If that mafia, whoever that is, that want to get inside scoop on the game, he sent a girl over to you, and you're sitting there just, I might be hurt. I don't like such and such, and you're just talking. But that information is valuable to a guy that's about to bet $1 million on a game. You get what I'm saying? So it comes
so many layers to this. So many factors.
But
in the
the thing
equation
is, right now they're legalizing sports betting, and it's big in sports right now. So 11 states has legalized it because the taxes, the money it make for the state and things like that. At first, the government was over it. Now they've let the state decide now. So that is where I come in. The content that I'm bringing to them is like, hey, I'm looking to impact and prevent this from happening. If you don't get ahead of it, you're going to be behind. And something just happened in, I believe it was New York, a mafia out of New York. A case just recently happened. So, like I say, the movement, the product that I'm giving out is definitely worth it, because in a few, all states are going to be legal. This is going to be. This is just a matter of time.
Right.
You know,
sports betting in the states are going to be legal.
Right. And it's a $1 billion industry. Yeah. Exactly. It's a $1 billion industry, and right now they need it, and it's so many people looking for that. But to get back to how I got in it, like I said, the involvement became from, I believe, for me deep down, it was just a relationship that I had with him, and I'm a loyal person. And with that being said, I tell those kids, man, you got to watch who's in your circle, because it's important. Because if you don't, you can end up in a situation that you have no idea. When I was sitting in prison, I'm thinking it's just me and him. They bring in the newspaper by I didn't even know the mafia was in it. You know what I'm saying? So it was just when I
finding out information like everybody.
Oh, it's insane!
Else.
I go to court. I got my cuffs on. They got the chains on me, and then they bring the other ones out. And I promise you, probably about 7 of those guys, I have no idea who they are. They locked them up. You know what I'm saying? They're in chains right now, and I'm watching them walking out. And I'm looking at them like, oh, this is crazy. I have no idea who these people are. Somehow we in a conspiracy. You get what I'm saying? So I got charged. This
is wild.
Yeah, I got charged with the knowledge of conspiracy. So I didn't point shave. The end result, I go to prison. So I sat in this case 2 years trying to figure out, hey, what we gonna do? They never sent me a game. They never identified the game. But now I'm sitting in this case, which all these other guys, they own clubs, they do this. Right. This is my life. This is everything I worked for.
So, wow. This is just like, wow, bro. This is wild.
Shouts out to Young Buck, man. He was locked up with me too. So.
Was he?
He actually, if you check my Instagram, man, he actually posted. So I got a documentary coming out, and
okay, so that was going to be my next question. I was like, is this going to be on the screen? Are you writing a book? What is going on? Because I am totally fascinated. I only thought that I had 12 minutes. Each segment is only 12 minutes.
Oh man, I apologize.
We are talking the whole. No need. No, this is fascinating, bro.
Okay.
So. We're talking the whole actually, and I'm going to take this conversation and put it on my podcast as well.
Oh man, that's a blessing, man.
This is amazing, bro. So you have
I have a book coming out, man. I actually I was on a live interview, and they actually sent some names in. They was listening to my story, and me and my wife and my friends and Sarah and my manager Gloria, we was all trying to brainstorm on topics of the name of the book, because I got the publishing company. They looking for the titles and everything. So somebody sent something in that was amazing. It's called Broken in Seconds. And that would be my book title. That book's supposed to come out around this summer, 2020 this summer. 2020 this summer, man. All so, right. I actually I'm sorry I'm delayed, because I walked into this lane just accidentally. I didn't know how it was gonna go. God has definitely put His hands on everything, so it's been building. Work, though? Yeah. It's been crazy. It's been crazy.
You.
Yeah, it's so crazy. The same thing that tore me down has rebuilt me. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? Now I'm going out to speak to these schools, man. If I could tell you the full blessing, and I want to go back, because I want people to hear this part. When I was going through those 2 years fighting for my life through the motion hearings and things like that. See, the illusion is that's what they want you to see, far as the case holding its weight. But that wasn't it. See, when you're going through a situation like that, man, you got to look way deeper than the illusion on the outside. So what He gave me back during that time, man, I wasn't the best father. I had my son when I was a sophomore in college. So during this process, I'm so locked in on the NBA training. I'm in California, he's in Houston, those things. I'm so locked in on all that, where I wasn't a good father to my son. I had to look myself in the mirror. And when I came back home, everything that I left at 14, God gave it back to me. But it was a whole, I did 5 years of college, not one visit. I did not a one textbut. I did this whole process. San Diego was my life, my home. You get what I'm saying? So through this process, I'm going through my own demons, my own fights. I ended up tearing my Achilles. Nobody's at my bedside. You want your family when you go through, sir. I went through 2 surgeries in 1 year. All those things transpire. So that gap I had, that anger, that energy I had around me, that without me knowing, because I had to suppress it in order to survive. You get what I'm saying? I didn't want to focus on those little things, those details. But when I came home, that case set me down. They wouldn't let me leave. I was a flight risk. I tried to go play ball in China. They said no. They brought me back. So God had to sit me down to see other things that was important. So I had prioritized. So now all of a sudden I'm taking my son over here to school. I'm taking him. I'm at the birthday parties. I'm doing all this. Me and my mom's built a relationship. All the things that I needed to move forward in my life, He gave me that. And when I was finally admitted that, it was time to go. And it wasn't about the case. Like I said, I thought of that case 30 seconds to a minute where I was like, okay, You didn't do that, but you knew this and you knew this. The bribery, all that kinds of things. I could dissect that really fast. You get what I'm saying? So it was like, okay, what's the big picture? And that's what I'm trying to tell people. Like, the illusion, you got to look way deeper than that moment. You get what I'm saying? And what God gave me back, man, was my family. I have an amazing family. My son, we have an amazing connection because of that. So by the time it was time to go to prison, I got closer to God. And I asked my kids in those 3 months, when they sentenced me March 1st to May 31st, how you get ready for prison? You know, it's not going to lift weights and all that. It's you got to get closer to God. You got to get a better understanding. And the foundation I built before I went to prison, man, I was ready. You know,
man, listen, what a story. This was the interview that I didn't know that I needed in my life. And to hear this, what an inspiration, what a story, my God. The production on, your movie or documentary or what, how are we looking? When
man,
you looking
I'm projecting that. You want to see how the book does. You want to see the feedback. So right now, like I said, I
book
just
first, and then doc.
And right now I had been balancing. I still play pro ball. Okay. I'm going through that transition, trying to figure out the universities are calling and things like that. So I'm trying to balance it out, man. Like I said, my family's so important. I just had my newborn, Braylon King, man. He just came out June 22nd. So man, that was exciting. Like I said, God set me down. And I always
he's
go
a Cancer. He's a great
he's
man.
solid, man. He's solid. My birthday was actually October 9th. Happy belated.
Happy belated. Okay, still Libra season.
Yeah, Libra season, man. We here, man. But the documentary, man, we did a promo for it. My girl Sarah, man, she's my director for everything, man. For my content, everything, man. She's doing an amazing job. She's here with us today, man. Yes. Shouts out to Sarah, man. She does a great job. And we've actually, obviously, the promo has to come out, and then you get the directors. I got some amazing people reaching out to me.
Well, listen, we're gonna be looking out for it all. I need your commitment right now to say that you will come back on the program when the book gets ready to drop, man. When it's out, and the doc.
Broken in Seconds, man. It's coming.
That is dope. Please give out your social where people can find you, email to where they can, book you to speak and all of that goodness.
Got you, man. Listen, if you guys want to follow the journey, man, follow me at I am Brandon Johnson. That is my Instagram. I am Brandon Johnson. And also go visit the website, www.brandonsboldjourney.com, man. If you guys want to book anything like that, all the information is on there, man. Make sure you guys tune in, man. I'm going to be bringing a lot of content, man. Thank you guys so much, man. I'm so excited. It's my first time at night. I'm going crazy.
That's what's up. Listen, motivational speaker, former NBA player, and savior to the youth with his experience. The one and only Brandon Johnson. Man, thank you so much.
Man,
this was
thank
amazing.
You guys, man. It's a blessing, man. Glory to God, man. Make sure you guys stay locked in, man. God is the main source, man. If you're going through anything, any obstacle, man, make sure you get back to the root, man. That's God, man.
And that's the word for this morning. And thank you for listening to Access Houston.
We'll be back with more Access Houston on 97.9 The Box.